In today's free Affinity Photo tutorial, I'm going to show you how to go from this dark photo into this amazing photo with bright colors, brightness, and generally a very spring-like vibe. So we're going to learn how to overcome problems like underexposed photos. We're going to learn how to bring the colors of our photos to life, and we're going to literally transform a dark shot into something amazing. I'm going to show you every step that you need to take in order to get results like this by using Affinity Photo. So let's get started. Hello everybody, this is Strato Agianni from Illumius.com and from Greece, where we teach you Affinity Photo Tutorial and techniques that will help you get the best possible results with the camera and the gear you already own. So if you're new here, consider subscribing because we create free tutorials like this one each and every week. So without any further delay, let's dive into our lesson for today. So this is the photo that we are going to be using. As you can see, it's quite an interesting photo. It was taken with a Sony 6300 body and a lens that is a 70 to 350 millimeters that I bought specifically to shoot birds, because this is my brand new hobby now. What can you say? So what we need to do right now is we need to take this raw file and make sure that we take advantage of the information that was captured by our camera and bring the light and the colors to life. Okay, so in order to do something like this, I'm going to select this photo and I'm going to simply click and drag it into Affinity Photo. So once the photo opens up, you're going to notice that it will open not directly in Affinity Photo, but it will open into the develop persona, which is actually a small program within Affinity Photo that allows us to manipulate raw files and prepare them before we make our final edit within Affinity Photo. So in this part of Affinity Photo, we take full advantage of the raw file that our cameras produce. For example, if this photo is too dark, I can simply go to the exposure slider, drag it to the right, and magically you will notice that we have brightened up the photo in 1.3 seconds. It's amazing, okay? So this is before and after, before. This is with just a simple move, so it gets better, trust me. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we get enough contrast. So I'm going to play around with the black point. If we drag it to the right, you will see that we get a lot more contrast and we also get more vibrant colors. These yellows come to life, and the greens also come to life as well. So we get much richer tones if we move the black point around. Once we do something like this, you will notice that we have a lot of bright areas like this one, which is overexposed, and also this small patch of flowers over here, but we can save these areas by going to the shadows and highlights tab, and by activating if we click here on this checkbox, and then we can get the highlight slider and drag it to the left until we get back our full blown detail that was captured by the raw file. Again, since we are here, we need to push the shadows to the right in order to brighten them up just a little bit. So as you can see, we get some brightness in these very dark areas and we get a lot more detail. And now that we have fixed the highlights and the shadows, we can go back to the exposure slider, drag it to the right slightly in order to brighten up the whole photo, and play around with the brightness as well if you wish to do so. Okay, now I can see that maybe I need to save my highlights just a little more. And maybe I will add some generic contrast by slightly moving this contrast slider to the right, somewhere around 3%. Finally, if we are happy with the colors, all good. If we are not, we can go to the white balance, activate it, and give some more warmth to the photo. So I'm going to move the temperature slider slightly to the right, just like that. And we get some richer and warmer tones for this image. Now that we are done, we are ready to click on the develop button over here, and Affinity Photo is going to take the raw file, it's going to apply the editing we did into the develop persona, and will bring the final result over here within the Affinity Photo environment. Now, what we need to do is we need to explore the photo, okay? First of all, what we need to do is we need to get rid of small specks of dust and dirt, etc, etc. For example, we have a circle over here, which is a dust spot, and maybe something around here. I don't know if you can see it on your monitor. And in order to retouch our photo in a non-destructive way, all we have to do is go over here at the layers panel, click on the brand new add pixel layer. No, not the brand new, add. Okay, let's do it again. Let's click, come on Stratos, let's click on the add new pixel layer button, and this will add an empty layer on top of the photo. Next up, we need to select the empty pixel layer and rename it into retouching, touching, and finally I'm going to select from here the ink paint brush tool. I'm going to make sure that I'm sampling and using current layer and below in order to take full advantage of this process and have the spot removal tool from Affinity Photo to actually use all the layers in order to gain information and erase any specks we find. And I'm going to go over here on this speck, I'm going to left click and paint on it, and once I release my mouse button, voila, it is gone. Now we have these lines over here which look kind of distracting, so this line over here and maybe this line over here. Let's see if we can retouch them. So I'm going to click and drag again with the ink paint brush tool. I'm going to wait for Affinity Photo to do its magic and hopefully it's gone, okay? So everything blends nicely with the rest of the photo. I'm going to do the same here. So I'm going to click and drag somewhere around here. Let's see what will happen. Okay, it worked perfectly, and I'm going to do the same thing starting from here and throughout this whole line up to this direction. Alright, now it looks a lot better, if you ask me, okay? So, we retouched our photo, let's play around with the colors, shall we? Because playing with colors is super fun. I'm going to go over here and select the hue, saturation, luminance adjustment. So I'm going to do the HSL adjustment, I'm going to click it, and now you can see that we have this control dialog. Now, if we move the hue shift slider to the left or to the right, you're going to notice that our whole photo is changing colors, okay? Now, I can change every color and affect every color into that exists within the image, but I can also target specific colors. For example, if I click on the yellows over here, this switch is going to be applied only in the areas that contain yellows, and my whites, my reds, my purples will remain as they are. And you can also tighten the area that gets affected by moving this, let's say, control points over here. We can bring them together, so only this spectrum or this range of colors will be affected. And what I'm going to do is, because it's kind of too yellowish, I want to make it a little more impressive. I'm going to click and drag it slightly to the right. So there you have it. Now it looks more like a sunset photo, and this was indeed the time that this photo was taking. So we went from this, let's say, somewhat ugly yellow into this interesting orange color by playing around with the hue shift slider at the hue saturation luminance panel from the hue saturation luminance adjustment. Okay? So, we are looking great. Now, maybe a little cropping is needed in order to get rid of some distracting elements. For example, this area over here is kind of distracting. So, I'm going to use my crop tool over here. I'm going to select the original ratio mode, so it will constrain the ratio of the original photo. And I'm going to click and drag somewhere around here just to get rid of all this stuff. And maybe I will bring this in just a little bit in order to get rid of this small leaf that gets into my frame. I'm going to click here, and now I have to decide if I want to keep the frame as is or I want to include this small patch as well. But because I can't have everything, I have to decide maybe I will try this composition over here. I'm going to hit apply, okay, and there you have it. Now we have our flowers in focus. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to brighten up the white areas and I want to bring the shadows to life, but I want to do it selectively. I want to do it in specific areas. So, I'm going to use my favorite tool, which is a curves adjustment. So, I'm going to click over here in the layers panel, in the adjustments menu, and I'm going to select curves. Then I'm simply going to click in the middle over here to create a new control point, and I'm going to click and drag it to the left and upwards. And I am only looking at the areas that I want to get brighter and interest me. For example, I'm not looking this area. I don't care about it because it's already too bright. I don't care about this. I don't care about this. I don't care about the background. I don't care about any of this stuff. All I care about are the branches that are kind of dark, this patch of flowers, this patch of flowers, etc, etc. If these areas look fine, then I'm good to go. But as you can see here, so far, this adjustment is applied throughout the whole photo. So this is before and after, it affects everything, and I don't want that. I want to be very selective on where the light will be visible within this photo / adjustment that I did. So in order to hide this effect and apply it specifically to some very specific areas, I'm going to go over here to the curves adjustment. I'm going to left click it first of all in order to be more organized and rename it, and I will rename it of course into extra light, let's say extra light. Okay, that's good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit, after I select this layer, I'm going to hit Ctrl I on my keyboard in order to invert its mask. As you can see here, this is the mask, this white rectangular shape that was white, and now it's black, meaning that wherever the mask is black, in this specific area of the photo, the brightening effect will not be applied. If the mask is white in a specific area, then in the same specific area within the photo, the brightening effect will be applied. And of course, now the mask is completely black, so the effect is completely hidden from everything within the photo. Okay? So I'm going to take my brush tool, I'm going to select paintbrush, I'm going to use my left and right square bracket keys on my keyboard in order to give my brush a nice manageable size, in order to be able to paint light in these areas with ease. And then I'm going to select an opacity of 100%, flow 100%, hardness 0%, and I'm going to make sure that I'm using the white color with my brush. So I'm simply going to start painting on the areas that I want to become brighter. So I'm going to paint here because what I'm actually doing is I'm painting with white into the mask of the extra light layer. And where the mask is white, this is where within the image the effect will appear. So as you can see, I'm painting here, I'm painting here, I'm painting here, but I'm not painting here because it is already too bright. Okay, so I'm just clicking and painting, clicking and painting. Now I'm doing a horrible job, I'm doing a very sloppy job, but I'm going to show you a trick in order to save time and make things look really professional. Okay, but for now let's concentrate on painting light on the areas that we need them to be brighter. Now, as you can see, this is the before and after, huge difference, but we're having some kind of funky I can't say this word. We have halos of light, okay? And they don't look very good, they look horrible, but we're going to fix this in just a second. So, I'm going to select the extra light layer, I'm going to click on the mask, and then here comes the magic, I'm going to select filters, blur, and Gaussian blur, and I'm going to crank it all the way up to 100 pixels. I'm going to hit apply, and this is before and after, before and after. Now, what I did there is the following. I blurred the mask, meaning that the edges of the brush strokes are blurred away and are melting through the blur into the rest of the photo. So the light blends nicely and more naturally with the rest of the frame, and it doesn't look weird, okay? It looks a lot more realistic. That's the idea. So, if this is okay, good for you. If you don't like it, you can double click on this mask of the extra light layer, and you can again click and drag this control point upwards to brighten even more the flowers. Or if it's too bright and it looks like crap, you can click and drag it and move it towards the center, and this will create a less bright result. But I believe this looks fine for now. Now, we're going to do some more magic. We're going to take all these layers and we're going to merge them into a brand new layer in order to apply the final effect, which is a lens blur filter, in order to draw the attention of the viewer towards the flowers in the front line. So, in order to do so, I'm going to shift click and select the first layer, and then again shift click the last layer. I'm going then to hit Alt, Control, Shift and E. Again, Alt, Control, Shift and E. I'm going to press these buttons, and since I have all the layers selected, it's going to tell Affinity, hey, take all these layers, make a sandwich of them, merge them together and put the final result on top of everything else. So there you have it. As you can see, now I have a layer with a full image, with the full edits, and below it we have all the extra separate layers with the edits we did. Then, after we select this layer, we're going to click over here at the live filters, and I'm going, of course, to select depth of field filter. For this case, I'm going to select the tilt shift filter, I'm going to spin it around because this is how the branch is going. So I'm going to click and drag this control point to the left, and I'm going to make sure that this center dot is on top of the center of the branch. And as I'm pumping the radius up, or as I'm dragging the radius to the right, you will notice immediately that the edges over here are getting blurrier. Alright, so if I move this around, you will notice that we have blur in different parts of the photo. So this is how it works. From the center to here, we have almost zero blurriness, okay? From this point onto this point, we have a graduate increase of blurriness from somewhere around 50% to 100%. And everything that is outside of this line gets blurred with 100% the amount of blurriness we set here in the radius filter. Okay, that's it. And if you see some funky lines on transparency going on at the edges of the frame, make sure you always click on the Preserve Alpha checkbox in order to get rid of these artifacts. So what I like to do for shots like this, I like to bring these lines closer and closer and closer, because this will allow me, for example, to emulate a shallow depth of field if I used a very large sensor camera with a telephoto that has a very open aperture, meaning shallower depth of field. I'm going to move the center of this effect that keeps everything nice and sharp and clean on top of these flowers that are in the foreground. And maybe if I wanted to have a more graduated and more pleasing result in terms of blurriness, maybe I would drag these lines apart just a little bit. Now I'm going to close this, and this is the before and after, before and after. Now, if you want to change this effect, double click on the white rectangular shape of the depth of field blur, and again you can increase the radius, you can bring this closer, etc., until you get a result that you like. So I think this looks a lot better, and this is before without the blur, and after, before and after. It looks better because it draws the attention of the viewer towards these white petals, etc. Now, if we want to add a small adjustment, let's say, that will make our photo pop, then we need to create a vignetting effect. And how are we going to create a vignetting effect? Really easily, we have plenty of ways. Let's try something different for this episode of raw edit. So maybe I can go over here. Yes, I believe it should work. So let's go back. Let's take things from the beginning. So I have a pixel layer that has the depth of field effect, which creates this nice blur around the main area of focus, okay? Now, if we want, we can click on a pixel layer that contains our photo and click over here at the develop persona, and we can reload this single layer into the develop persona, and we can use the tools that are meant for raw files editing in order to edit our JPEG or our layers with our photos. So we can use the develop persona on JPEG or on pixel layers. And why you want to do something like this, you might ask? Well done, because you can go to the lens tab over here, you can click on the post crop vignette, and you can create a nice vignetting around the center of the frame. So you're going to bump up the intensity if you want the edges to be brighter, which is something that we don't want, don't ever do that. We need to go to the intensity slider and slide it down towards the left side of the frame. And as you can see, here is our vignetting. Now, if we use scale, you will see that if we reduce the scale, the vignetting closes closer and closer towards the center of the frame. And if we increase the scale, we increase the radius that is clear of the vignetting. So we increase the radius that doesn't have any vignetting at all. And in order to demonstrate it, I'm going to bump up the intensity to 100, to minus 100. I'm going to use the hardness at something like, let's say, 0% looks nice. So if we scale down, you will see that we have only a tiny part of the photo that is not affected by the vignetting. So we need to scale it up. And now we can clearly see that this part of the photo will be made nice and bright. And if we play with the hardness, we are going to open up the center towards the edges of the frame that remains bright. And again, let's play with the intensity. As you can see, if we go to 0, no vignetting. If we go to plus 100, bright vignetting, which is horrible, never use that. And we can go to minus, let's say, 64, 60 something, and we can get a nice vignetting effect. Once we are done, okay, we can click on the develop button over here, and this will apply the vignetting effect on our JPEG and also apply or reapply the depth of field effect. Finally, once you are done, you can always go over here, select the curves adjustment layer, click over here to create a new control point, click at the center to create a new control point, click here again to create another surprise control point. Act surprised, I know. So once you are done, all you have to do is click and drag over here if you want the bright areas to be slightly brighter or something like this, and click and drag this control point downwards if you want to make the photo have more contrast and become more rich, vibrant with darker tones, so something like this. And also for the overall brightness, play around with the center spot, drag it to the left, drag it to the right, drag it upwards, downwards until you get the result that you want. Okay? So that was it. So what we did. So how many times did I say so? Who knows? I say it a lot. This was the original photo. Okay, original photo, looks like crap, it's underexposed, no life whatsoever. This is not a spring photo, this is a really depressing photo. But by using the power of the raw files that your camera can capture and the power of Affinity Photo, we created something like this. Now, camera to me. This technique doesn't work only in flowers, of course, it works with every photo that needs a little bit of tinkering in order to bring it up to its full potential in terms of color, brightness, etc, etc, etc. Okay? So if you want to create images that pop, that are impressive, that will steal the attention of the viewer into the newsfeed of social media, etc, etc, this is the technique for you. It goes great on landscapes, portraits, even in plants that you can shoot on your backyard with a telephoto lens. Now, if you like this tutorial, you will be also super pleased to know that if you go to this amazing site, it's amazing because it's our website, of course, that is called illumius.com, you can find a lot more free tutorials like this one, okay, as you can see here we have a lot more tutorials, and you can get for free, you son of a gun, for completely $0 or euros, this full-blown course that will teach you how to create cinematic black and white portraits. That's right, you heard it, you can use Affinity Photo to create amazing cinematic black and white portraits, as you can see here, and this course is completely free for just a little longer. We have 76 people enrolled so far. You can get it completely free. It's a full-blown course, no bullshit. Go take it at illumis.com or use the secret link that you will find down below in our description. Okay, that was it for today. Thank you very much for hanging out. It was quite a lengthy tutorial. It's around 25 minutes, but I hope it was worth your time. If you liked this tutorial and you want more tutorials like this one, let me know in the comments below. It was too long, it was too short, you want more details, you want to see something else in terms of how to edit your photos with Affinity Photo, give your suggestions down below and we will see what we can do in one of our next free Affinity Photo tutorials. Okay, that was it for today. Thank you very much. Time to go outside in the sun because hey, this is Greece and we love sun as you know it. And until next time, take care, happy editing, like this video if you really liked it, subscribe because why not, and see you in the next one. Ciao!